Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Adeptus Ridiculous podcast. My name is DK Diamantes, and Kiriath is not here. Bricky is not here, but we do have a special guest who I will introduce in just a minute. But before I do, if you enjoy today's episode of the podcast, head over to patreon.com/Adeptus Ridiculous, where you can get access to the Discord, bloopers if they happen. $15 tier gets you access to all of our digital posters in crispy, whatever format they're in. You should check it out, patreon.com/Adeptus Ridiculous. And since Bricky is not here, I will remind you to head on over to orchidate.com, where you can get all of our merch, not all of our posters, but whatever the newest poster is. We've got hoodies, we've got shirts, we've got dice, we've got objective markers, everything you could possibly need. Check it out right now, orchidate.com. So, like I said, Kiriath is not here, Bricky is not here, but we do have a very special guest who is like I was 4 or 5 years ago, knows nothing about Warhammer. Would you care to introduce yourself, special guest?
Hello, I'm Maddie. If you know me, it's probably from something called Maddie is Talking. But yeah, I know nothing. Maddie is listening this time.
Well, you're literally talking right now. Appropriate name.
Yeah, I wanted to do something I couldn't get wrong. But yes, my name is Maddie, and I'm here to learn.
Hell yeah. And to be fair, full transparency, I'm not an expert on this topic either. I've had a lovely script prepared for me by Possum, and we're all gonna learn a little something special today. So,
Right.
yeah, let's kick it off. So, like we said, you're maybe not a Warhammer expert, so we were like, what better way to introduce our guest to the world of Warhammer? This dark, oppressive, inhuman setting. What's the best way to do this? Because there are a few universes that are more grimdark than Warhammer. There's tyranny, there's endless war, there are just apocalyptic scenarios happening left and right, and it's just one of the most hopeless universes you can live in.
Right.
It is never-ending war. It is not a fun place to be. This is not like, oh boy, this is the universe I want to be in. This is Pokemon, Star Wars. No, this is never-ending suffering, torment, everlasting war. And so when it's so grim, you might ask, like, why would anyone live like this? Is there really any point to trying to live in these worlds? There's a new book that just came out. It's called The End and the Death. And it's like, is that just the perfect encapsulation of Warhammer 40K? But the most important question I have for you today, Maddie, is, are you ready for some football?
Oh, all right. I guess that was kind of a zag on me, but yeah. Okay.
Because Warhammer does have its own sort of alternate universe that does have its own version of football. Specifically, it's called Blood Bowl. We are going to be talking about Blood Bowl today, a sport in an alternate universe that was so entertaining that basically it eradicated the concept of war from its timeline.
Now, what?
Yeah, because everyone is so into football, is so into Blood Bowl that there's no war. Everybody's so into Blood Bowl that there's, yeah.
I'm going to try and not say wow a million times today, but I think that's fascinating because I mean, what a commentary that is right there. And I think I might be already understanding what Warhammer might be about because, they're dangling the little carrot in front of us, so we're not paying attention to a lot of other stuff. Maybe that's happening in our own world.
I was going to say, don't worry about being like, wow, all the time, because that's usually what I do. Usually I'm the one being taught all of this Warhammer stuff that I know nothing about. And there is a pretty big meme of me just going like, Jesus, wow, oh my God, that's crazy. Oh my God. And another big meme is just like me repeating things that Bricky just told me because it's like, wow, I can't believe you said that. Repeat it for me. And yeah.
Yeah, well, here I am, mouth agape, very excited. I think that's what
Hell
that
yeah.
phrase means. I should not have said that
Yeah.
without knowing exactly what that
I mean, yeah, mouth definitely can be agape with shock,
Yeah, there
awe.
we go.
Yeah, yeah.
Good
Words,
save,
right?
thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going over Blood Bowl, some of the famous players, the species that play it, the game itself, but in order to truly get Blood Bowl, we need to go over its history first. So strap in because this is sort of the ESPN 30 for 30 episode on Blood Bowl.
Oh, I now I hope that you didn't lock in on the sports thing because I know so little about 'cause because there's a good chance that I know even less about sports.
Well, we just locked in on this because it's like it's just this fun thing. It's
Yeah,
like this
no.
alternate universe, And if there's a sports reference, I got you, right? I
Okay, no, I
I I
appreciate it.
pretty regularly watch football, right? We
Oh,
got
good,
this.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I did play football in high school, which I think is the most people when people find that out about me, they think I, like, worked for the FBI for a while because it's so out of left field for me. But, yeah, alright, I think I got what I need.
Okay, okay. High school collegiate football player. See, you've already got more. You're already more into this than I am, right? I only
I
watched it.
play
You
I
played it. You
I
played it.
played 1 season in high school, and then I said, "I don't wanna do that ever again."
That's fair. That's fair. You were like CTE is not in my future.
Yeah.
So, Blood Bowl has always been a part of our world. The sacred tablets of Lustria, old beyond all human reckoning, tell of a time when the world was young, when the mythical Old Ones and their servants, the Slan, introduced the worship of Nuffle, the god of violent sports, to the world. So, Blood Bowl, quite literally, is ancient history. So much so that there is hieroglyphic evidence that it was played in ancient Nehekar. Nehekar is sort of like your ancient Egypt.
Okay.
And the great kings of Nehekar were buried in mausoleums constructed thanks to their various sports sponsorships in hope that one day they could rise again and play the sport again. Because in Nehekar, they're tomb kings, they revive themselves, they're everlasting, and sort of the ancient mummy deal.
Like, this
But
is like us
much oh, go ahead.
With Twitch this is like us with Twitch streamers. They are kind of our
Yeah.
gods and kings.
Pretty much. They're the sports gods for sure.
Yeah.
But much like the Tomb Kings themselves, the sport was also buried along with it. But the power of the sport can be seen throughout history. It's no coincidence that ancient moments of peace are also noted with relics showing evidence of Blood Bowl being played. However, the game ultimately vanished, and this caused Nuffle, the god of violent sports, to turn his back on the world. And though Nuffle is the god of violent sports, he also, strangely for a Warhammer god, he finds war to be very distasteful, very wasteful, and he doesn't like it. So he quite literally, when his violent sport was laid to rest, it is stated that he quite literally takes his ball and abandons the world until
Oh,
until the world is once more ready to re-embrace his sport. He takes his ball and he goes home.
I love that. Now, and this is
And
the only god I know about, but I'm aligned with
you're
you.
aligned with the god of violent sports. Yeah. It's taking you back to the high school days. Let's go.
I like that petty stuff.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of the other chaos gods too. So we'll get you there.
Okay.
And the reemergence of his sport, that time would come because there would be a stalemate conflict between the orcs and the dwarfs. The two sides found an ancient arena. There was this energy emanating from the arena, and both sides were like, whoa, we got to see what this is about. We got to see what this arena is all about. And one of these explorers was an ancient dwarf that was half blind and a self proclaimed language expert. And this expert began to sort of pour through all of these ancient tablets and scriptures that they found in the arena. And what he found was, and this is like a direct quote, this book wheezed the ancient seer, blinking his heavy-lidded eyes a few times, appears to be the religious text of a group of warriors who came from a land called Amorica. The book is dedicated to the lost god Nuffle, the head priests of the various sects of this deity known as coaches, lead their band of warriors into great arenas and attempted to exterminate each other. The object was not, however, violence simply for violence sake. No, it was, in truth, a ritual of great significance. So literally, we have football being discovered in the land of Amorica.
Yes.
Very thing with GW is sometimes they're very on the nose with where they're getting their inspiration from. So
Now,
it is.
sorry, when you say GW, now, assuming that someone
Sorry,
got dropped off on the earth.
That is Games Workshop. They're the ones that do Warhammer. They make they make the tabletop, they make the game, they make all the stuff. Yeah. Don't worry.
Okay.
And sometimes when they write their lore, they are very on the nose about like, yep, it's America, but look, we put an O in the middle. It's not America, it's Amorica. And so American football, here we come.
Yes.
And there were many other truths found in these texts, including the carrying or throwing of an inflated pig's bladder from one camp, known as an end zone, to another in order to accumulate things called points.
Yeah, they kind of are a little bit literal.
They're very literal. There's end zones, there's coaches, there's Amorica, there's a pigskin.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
Yep, the pig's bladders are pigskin. Yep.
Yes. Yep. Wait, now that's a question for another time. I was gonna say, is that what we did?
I mean, that's how footballs are made, right? It's the pigskin, right?
Yeah.
That's the original one, yeah.
Wow.
The old pigskin on the gridiron, yeah.
Yeah, you wow. Okay, I am doing it. Sorry.
I told you that's usually me. You're good. But the other big thing they learned was that Nuffle has this sacred number of 11. Only 11 warriors are on the field per side at any given time, and a healthy reserve fleet to replace any fatigued or maimed players. And according to the text, so long as no weapon was used, fair combat is allowed, because the body of a player is a weapon in and of itself. And both the dwarves and the orcs looked at this ancient dwarf explaining Amorican football to them, and he said it seemed that the finding of the text and the arena must have been Nuffle's divine way of suggesting an end to their conflict, and that they should attempt to sort of recreate this ancient ritual. So in finding these rules and learning about this game, they were like, you know what? We don't need to fight each other anymore. We want football. We want Amorican football.
Yes.
So both sides would reassemble the stadium as it was requested in the sacred text, and the site of the holy gridiron, as it was called, began to restore youth to the ancient dwarf. It was on this day, after many centuries, that Nuffle's Amorical football was played once more. The ancient dwarf took the sacred high priest title of commissioner and was known as Sacred Commissioner Rose L, which, if anyone is familiar with NFL history, there was a former NFL commissioner named Pete Rozelle.
Oh my goodness.
Which I'm sure it's just a coincidence that they just happen to sound exactly the same, right?
Yeah. I'm like trying to write down everything you're saying and trying to see if I can draw parallels. Obviously, many of them are extremely clear. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, very,
now,
very.
Do you know if was this guy created for this? I don't want to call it a bit, but this segment of lore.
Oh, Rozelle? Yeah, probably.
Or no, Rozelle and Nuffle.
You know, I'm pretty sure he was, because he's the god of violent sports. This is their blood bowl. So I'm sure that Nuffle was created specifically for Blood Bowl specifically for this game. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so we got all right. I'm
Because you
seeing it now.
can actually play Blood Bowl. It is a video game, a very popular video game, and I believe it's a board game.
Huh? Okay. All right. That
Yeah,
that that's
it's
what I know about Warhammer is just how it goes very deep and it goes very wide.
oh
And
yeah.
I think that's like I was trying to come up with the things that I knew about Warhammer yesterday, just in my mind and writing them down, and I was like, "Oh, obviously, it's yet to be made into TV or movie that's happening, of course." But
That is, yep, yep.
I was like, I know there's video games, and I know that it's a tabletop thing, and then I was like, "Oh, I remember watching, like, hours and hours and hours of miniature painting." And I didn't know any lore at all. I just liked watching the people paint paint the figures, and I realized that was Warhammer. Um,
Watching professional painters paint their little minis is just the craziest thing ever.
it's so therapeutic, and then it's one of those things where and everybody who's listening to this already knows this, but it's one of those things where it's like, I'm watching them paint, and I would be done about 10 times before they're finished. And then they're like, "Oh, yeah, this is it." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that looks great. I would call that a day." And then they go, "But
Yep.
one more layer." And then I go, "Oh my god, it's
Right,
becoming
right.
more real."
Oh, look, here's how you make heated metal. Here's how you make it look
Yeah.
like your mini is glowing with paint. And it's like, I'm sorry.
Right. Yes. When they put the lighting behind it. Oh my goodness.
It's sorcery.
Big shouts. Big shout. It really is.
Mhm. So, Roselle's first action as commissioner was to establish the Church of Knuffles, a Moracle Football, to not only oversee the game and its followers, but also to serve as sort of the governing body. But the name, sort of the Church of Knuffles, a Moracle Football, didn't really stick. It was a lot to say. So it eventually just became known as the Church of NAF, or NAF for short. And despite the name change, they still took in all the tax benefits a church would take in. Mm.
Alright. That's
And
smart. No, that's just good business.
oh yeah, oh yeah. And every time I hear NAF, I'm like, oh, it's so close to NFL, NAF. Just add the L at the end
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
Wait,
And oh, go ahead.
that's why he's called Nuffle.
Nuffle NFL. Ooh.
It makes me
Oh.
it makes me kind of mad that I let that go so long without realizing
Nuffle
it.
is just NFL. If you just say NFL, it's Nuffle. Oh.
No way. Because I'm writing down a bunch of stuff here, and then yeah, because I wrote Church of NAF, and I was looking at that, and I was like, "Huh?" And then you said it, and then I was like, "Wait, we're getting somewhere."
The
I'm not, like, angry. I'm angry with myself kind of for
Yeah,
letting that.
I didn't even make I've looked over this script 100 times. Never did was I
It
like, "Oh, yeah, Nuffle is just like if you tried to say NFL,
that
Nuffle."
is
Oh,
bonkers.
that's
Okay.
crazy. I guarantee you that's why it's called that. I am that is canon lore. I don't care what anybody says.
Oh, man.
Anyway, after the establishment of the NAF, it had two main goals: the full, proper translation of the word of Nuffle and the spread of the words of Nuffle. The translation of the rules came with the uncovering of more specific rules, and the spreading of the word of Nuffle proved to be fairly quick and easy. In a matter of weeks, delegations from the various races of the Old World convened to the NAF headquarters. Regardless of conflict or pre existing hatred between the various races, the word of Nuffle was viewed as just this remarkable unifier. Everybody sort of gravitated towards this game, and everyone was like we said, this sort of killed off war. Nobody was really conflicting anymore. Everybody was coming together to sort of make this new sport a reality. And under Roselle, the various sects, known as teams, competed in annual competitions known as seasons that culminated in what was known as the Blood Bowl final. And the name Blood Bowl it was a nice, easy name. It really put an emphasis on what the sport was about. So they were like, you know what? We're just gonna call this sport Blood Bowl.
Yes.
And some truly amazing teams rose up across the old world.
Oh, I cannot wait for this.
So on the script, our editor Possum has put, but none of them are as good as the Baltimore Ravens, which Shai is a big fan of the Baltimore Ravens, and
I see.
I hate to bring reality into this, but for a team that's supposed to be that good, they've won one playoff game in like the last 10 years. So
I'm
a
a guest in
little
it, so I'm
little
saying yes.
bias. It's probably a good idea to stay out of that. But outside of the players, there are plenty of other significant things that impact a team. The coaches, of course, are a sort of vital religious analog for the teams themselves, and the passion of the fans are also important to ensure the game goes well. And of course, when talking about football, we can't forget about the cheerleaders, because their energy literally provides incredible morale for all of the parties involved. And sometimes the cheerleaders will just go super hard. Like they'll be pushing it and cheering louder than the fans, louder than the team. And in a notable instance, an ogre cheer team went so hard in a routine that they reduced an entire arena to rubble.
Whoa.
And
So,
oh, go ahead,
uh,
go ahead.
well, I have a question about the kind of the Warhammer world. So this makes sense that and again, I'm really kind of showing my ass as it were, but that someone's energy can affect someone else, obviously,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So and I'm imagining all of this, and I'm drawing obvious parallels to the real world that we live in. But I like that from a writing perspective. That one seems like it's the first thing to take it one step into fantasy or,
Right.
to go, their energy provides morale.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a nice little touch, and I
And
like that that can destroy an entire stadium.
yeah, and as we talk about Warhammer, that's like a big thing with sort of like the chaos gods, is they will feed on specific types of energy. So we'll talk a little bit about them later, but like you have Khorne, god of war. There's blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. So anytime there's like war, anytime there's like brutal combat, he feeds off of that energy and he kind of gets a little stronger. There's Nurgle, god of decay, death. So anything involving death, sickness, disease, that energy kind of feeds him. And that's sort of like how the gods work. So in Warhammer, definitely there's a lot of sort of feeding off of energy. Energy of like what you're doing and what kind of stuff you're doing is like a big part of it.
Okay, I like that. Is Nurgle that one isn't one I've heard before, I think. Is
Oh,
that a very
okay.
common one or no?
It is Nurgle's a popular one for
A
sure.
popular, okay. Yeah,
He's
I
always
and listening
depicted as
to
sort of like a big, fat, green, like, pus-covered, boil-covered, dripping with, like, bleh and muck and bleh.
ooh,
Yeah,
now that
very,
sounds nasty.
very gross models. A lot of the models have, like, their belly has a literal mouth on it, and it's just very yeah.
The whole time of this episode, I just go, "Ew, that's gross."
If we were doing an episode specifically on Nurgle, it would be just a lot of, "Ew, gross, yuck."
But yeah, that one, I'm just it's fascinating because, I mean, Warhammer's been around for quite a while, and it's
Yeah.
just fascinating to look back on my life and go, "Oh, wait, I've heard this," from people
Right?
who are more excited about it than I am
Mhm.
knowledgeable.
I'm trying to remember when it started. I think it was, like, the '80s? I wanna say
Okay.
'86 is
Yeah,
when
well, that makes
Warhammer,
sense.
like, started,
That did
but,
a lot of lore to catch up on then.
oh, yeah. 4 years in, and we're like, "Wow, we've barely scratched the surface, hooray." So, Roselle, lived to the age of 196, and his notes and musings on the great word of Nuffle keep scholars of the sport busy to this day. So you may be thinking, hey, aren't there other gods in Warhammer that can stop this Nuffle guy? Which is a lovely transition that was completely accidental. And there
I
is
was thinking that.
yeah, you were thinking
Really
exactly
was.
that. Well done, Possum. There's literally a pantheon of chaos gods. Like we said, there's Korn, there's Nurgle, there is Slanesh, who is the god of excess, is always striving for perfection. There is which ones have I said? There's Korn, Nurgle, Slanesh, Zinch, and I feel like I'm forgetting a bunch of them, but that's okay. It's early in the morning. You can forgive me for that.
Hey, I don't know
Um,
if you are. Sounds
yeah,
all it all it they all sound there to me.
but some think he is a cousin to the gods of chaos. Others think that Nuffle represents the sum of the parts of all the gods of the worlds. But one thing that is for sure known is somehow none of the known deities that we've talked about have any power over Nuffle's word in any way, shape, or form. His word quite literally nullifies the other powers of the world, and sort of all the other gods just kind of have to deal with him. There's not a whole lot they can do about him and his violent sport.
Yeah.
It is well known that Khorne, Blood for the Blood God, absolutely loves Blood Bowl and actually has teams that actively participate in Blood Bowl since he loves just brutal, bloody combat.
Yeah,
The
well,
same with. Oh, go ahead.
I have a question, and I don't know if you know the answer, but the teams, and you might have said this, but the teams, they're representing specific gods? Or are
So I
they're not, 'cause it doesn't seem like they're representing regions, or maybe they are, but I don't know. I wouldn't know the difference between them, to be
so we'll
honest.
we'll sort of talk about like team composition and where they come from,
Okay.
but usually they're kind of made up of like this is one of the few that like, oh yeah, this team is represented by Khorne, the
Gotcha,
sort
okay.
of war god. There's some that represent the dark elves, there's some that represent the ogres, there's some that represent like dwarves and halflings. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but generally speaking, they're all also made of it's never really just one race that's on a team because you wanna have a diverse squad, right? You wanna make
Oh,
sure you
sure.
don't just have a bunch of, elves that just immediately get bodied, right? So,
Sure. I
yeah,
see.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the same could be said for Nurgle, probably because, like we said, he's very like sickness, the acceptance of death, and that's sort of like, oh yeah, the inevitability of the end of the game. Maybe somebody dies in there. Zinch is sort of this trickster god that loves to just do a lot of wacky concepts of the unknown. So Zinch probably loves Blood Bowl because who knows how the game's going to go? Who knows what chaos will be wrought? Slanesh, like we said, is the god of excess, focuses on perfection. And with any sport, the excess is always there. Excessive, overpaid, celebrity esque figures. You're trying to be as perfect as you can in a sport. You're really training hard. So, of course, Slanesh would love it too. So, we're kind of just assuming that all of the gods saw Blood Bowl. And even though they have no power over Nuffle, they were like, well, we all kind of like all the concepts that are going on in Blood Bowl. So, why would we stop it?
Yeah, something for everybody.
Exactly. Even the Chaos Gods just love it. So, after the death of Roselle, which just old age, he lived to be like almost 200. It's great. He was succeeded by his trusted assistant, Jim Thorpe, which, again, very, very suspiciously close to the first president of the American Professional Football Association, Jim Thorpe. But this one,
Yeah.
it's spelled DJIMM, not just JIM. It's Jim Thorpe, not just Jim.
Okay.
But again, must be a coincidence.
Really
No
working
way there.
overtime of it.
This is as on the nose as I think I've ever seen Warhammer. But without Roselle, bit of an issue came up. He was the great interpreter of like the word of Nuffle. He was the one that was kind of like he had scoured all of the text. He knew all the stuff. And with him gone, teams began operating and interpreting rules sort of on their own, very willy-nilly. And these issues would kind of vary from species to species. The greenskins, which are like orcs, goblins, stuff like that, they began to make up their own rules that would change in the middle of a game. Just suddenly, nope, we decided that it's okay for me to rip the head off of a player or something. The Skaven, which are like this group of like, yes, yes, ratlings. Oh, we're rats. We love to steal. We love to backstab. Would pretend to not know the rules so they could sneak in a victory and be very shady about it. The high elves of Ulthan, who are just these sort of like very pompous elves, rewrote the rules entirely to ban contact between players in general, because of course they don't want to ruin their majestic figure and all of their pristine armor. It was up to Jim to reunite everyone. So he began working with scholars to pore through Roselle's journals and notebooks, which was no easy feat because there were still a lot of them. But Jim became commissioner in the year 2378, and the first official unified rules of the sport would not be completed until 2409.
Oh, wow.
So it took a while. There were a lot of rules to sort through.
Yeah.
And
I'm writing all this down like I'll have any use for it.
Hey, who knows? Who knows when
That's
it'll, yeah. Trivial Pursuit one day, right?
Yeah.
Who was the first commissioner of Blood Bowl? And you'll be like, I know this! And the first draft of the Blood Bowl rules was widely considered to be just rubbish and needed to be reworked to account for some variance of the great game that had spawned during the time. There was a variant called Blitz Bowl, which was sort of like the way to get amateurs into the game, sort of like your feeder system. Dungeon Bowl was an underground variant that allowed the game to be played all year round. And Street Bowl, a now outlawed version of the game that was played in narrow streets. In 24...
We got like we have like Arena and the XFL. This is kind of close to the XFL.
This is actually really close. Like the original inception of the XFL.
Yeah.
They actually cleaned up the XFL. Now they play it like it's actual football instead of just a wild, wild west WWE football.
That.
Yeah. And in 2414, the rules were officially settled after the formation of an independent guild designed to oversee the Word of Nuffle. The Referees and Allied Rules Keeper Guild, or RARG, RARG. And to be in the guild, you needed to be up to date on all of the rules. You needed to have just the best knowledge of both the sport itself, while also maintaining order when it comes to corruption, to ensure that quote unquote the cost of bribing an official is always cost efficient and fair.
This actually is a little closer to FIFA, if you ask me.
Oh well, hey. I think that's on record. That very heavily like bribed.
I was gonna say, I think that I'm not making an accusation. I think that's a pretty well defined fact.
I feel like that's fair with all the crazy diving that happens in soccer, and it's like, oh, of course that's a red card. It's like he didn't even touch him. What do you mean? Anyway, so Jim retired in 2429, and what followed was one of the most difficult eras in the sport. So Jim Thorpe's successor was George Hellhound, which an original name in Blood Bowl? No way! Crazy. Who was less of a sports guy and more of a corporate megamind with a vision of the sport that, well, it was all about the money. George Hellhound, he was all about the Benjamins, baby. And there was a major problem that the sport faced at this point, and that was financial accessibility. So a stadium could only fit so many people at a time. And George wanted to somehow monetize the experience. He wanted to monetize it so that even if the stadium was at full capacity, he could still make money off of the people that maybe couldn't make it into the stadium, didn't live near a stadium, and, just really rake in the big bucks. And so essentially, he just at this time, there are these places called colleges of magic. Obviously, they specialize in doing all of your fantasy magic stuff. And so he pays a bunch of colleges of magic to sort of figure out a way to help him monetize. How can I make this as accessible to everyone as possible? And so this results in two of the biggest innovations in Blood Bowl history. The camera, which is spelled Camra, and Cabal Vision. And the magical innovation is as follows. The result was a spirit bound into a magic box. The bound spirit is allowed to look out of their box in one direction only through a glass porthole. And what the spirit sees can be transmitted by teams of magicians to magic mirrors and crystal balls the world over. This quickly became known as broadcast Cabal Vision. Anyone could buy a license to have games and other shows broadcast into a magic mirror or crystal ball in their own home.
Wow. So wait, in these cameras, there's a being, there's a living creature,
There's like a spirit that's
a
bound
spirit. Okay.
into the sort of camera, and they sort of magically display it to mirrors and crystal balls all over the world, so that everybody that has a crystal ball or one of these magic mirrors can watch a good old game of Blood Bowl.
This is really great, and I think that for someone who is so intimidated by the entire Warhammer thing,
Mhm.
is so intimidated into like I've watched like 2 episodes of The Simpsons because they got away from me. Same thing with like South Park. It's
Mhm.
like when things are so deep and run for so long, I go, oh, maybe it's maybe in another lifetime I'll catch up. But I do
Mhm.
think that had someone told me before they got goblins with the holding cameras, and the cameras have spirits in them. I think I might have get involved a little earlier. This is
Yeah,
very
well,
exciting to me.
so this is technically in sort of the Warhammer Fantasy realm. There's also like the sort of sci-fi space grimdark, but we're more in like the fantasy realm, which I feel like is
Gotcha.
a little more friendly because everybody kind of vaguely understands fantasy. Like this has its Warhammer spin on it, and I feel like it's a little more whimsical. It's more willing to be sort of like nonsensical at times, and
Yeah,
so I find it a little more tongue in cheek and a little easier to sort of like dip your toes into.
I see. Are they completely different worlds? Like, I mean, I'm sure that the like factions and stuff probably there's parallels in both, but do they ever interact with each other? Because I know like the Space Marine thing,
Mhm,
and that's I would assume the sci-fi side of
mhm.
everything,
Yep.
and obviously the Blood Bowl and the god of NFL is the fantasy. But are they kind of one and the same, or are they both just kind of two different worlds?
So
As of
more or less they're two different worlds. Like they
I see.
technically share the same pantheon of like chaos gods and stuff, but for the most part they are kind of two separate worlds. It's like this is the fantasy world, this is the sci-fi world. But yeah, like they share races, like there's still like greenskins, orcs, humans and stuff like that. But technically they're different universes. Yeah.
This is great. I mean, this covers a lot of bases for your. I mean, I'm normally a sci-fi guy. Like I'll normally lean on the side of like a Fallout or a
Oh,
Star
okay.
Trek because I like it being rooted a bit more in science or like kind of our political system is very interesting to
Mhm.
me. And there's a lot more in science fiction. There's a lot more parallels
Definitely.
for that stuff. But this is very exciting. This I think is great for someone like me who doesn't
Mhm.
know anything and finds what you said earlier, the blood and the viscera and the jockeying
Yeah.
for position and the battles and the dark, dark world. I think this is a nice reprieve. I hope everybody's
Yeah.
enjoying that Blood Bowl episode.
Yeah. It's taking all my willpower not to just go on a Trekkie nerd out because I also am the same way. But that's another episode for another time.
Yeah.
So
possibly even a whole other podcast.
yeah, a whole nother podcast for sure. So the innovation of the camera and the Cabal vision resulted in Hellhound being able to recreate one of the most important ancient aspects of the word of Nuffle, sponsorships.
Yes, dude,
Yeah, you need your sponsors. You need them. And by bringing more attention to the sport in a global visual manner, Hellhound figured that each individual division, conference, and season could be sponsored by different organizations, and that there would be just this crazy bidding war to be sponsors of the cool team, the regional team. He was, of course, correct, and the corporate sponsorship era it was in full swing. And the most well-known sponsor during this time was Bloodwiser, who sponsored the 2461 Blood Bowl Championship. The championship was being broadcast to the literal hundreds of homes that could afford Cabal Vision, and the mages who broadcasted it, Channel 7, made sure that the winners, a team of dark elves known as the Dark Side Cowboys, were paid handsomely for their victory.
Wow, they're really having fun over there.
Oh yeah, this is such a tongue-in-cheek, fun, just little sort of alternate universe of just everybody enjoying American football.
But well, now another question here. This is giving me a bad. This is giving me a bad first look, right? I'm assuming at Warhammer because if I go, I love Blood Bowl. They're so funny over there. I'm assuming it gets much worse.
Well, so I was gonna say, if you go up to like Warhammer, people are like, "Oh man, I love Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl's great." I think you'd be met with a lot of like, "Oh yeah, I love Blood Bowl too." I think it's like one of those universally like loved things that everybody just loves to talk about. Blood Bowl. They sort of love this sort of crazy, whimsical, on the nose football thing, and more than likely, someone will try and shove a picture of a orc cheerleader in your face just to see your reaction. I don't know if Shy has it, but I feel like that's the reaction that you would get.
I got no problem with that.
Yep. It's
if anybody would like to do that.
Yeah, it's like I think it's an orc cheerleader, and she is just out there swinging her very saggy breasts around, and just it's a whole thing. I think it's from. I have to assume it's from the video game. And
are you referring to one picture in particular? Or
yeah, I think it's like one GIF or something that everybody loves throwing around. And when I first, there you go. Shy has it right there in the guest chat for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say normally I'd want to describe it, but you just did a great job. That's kind of all there is.
Yeah, they're just big sagging breasts that are covered up by a little thing, and they're just really tilt the world.
That would get my morale up for sure.
Hell yeah, if I was an orc, for sure.
Do it for her. That is a Simpsons reference, I know.
Look at this. See, you know more about Simpsons than you thought, right?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, it's osmosis, just by osmosis for such a long time. And then the same thing happens with Warhammer. It's just, its cultural impact is so vast that,
That's true.
Pick something up.
Yeah, that's true. Like, you see that do it for her thing on Twitter for literally everything.
Yeah, for everything.
Every fandom, yeah. But the sponsorship changed the scope of the sport, and Hellhound saw a very long and uncontested tenureship. He stayed in office for a staggering 48 years. Yeah, he brought television and broadcasted to the world. He retired in 2477 after dying of old age, and was unfortunately replaced by the most controversial figure in the history of Blood Bowl. So Hellhound's successor was a young and eager Nuffle priest named Nick Threehorn, who was just... When he was an assistant to Hellhound, he was very supportive, very great, helped out with the sponsorships, loved the game. He was exceptionally knowledgeable about the inner workings of the NAF, and it was essentially just everybody expected him to take over. Once Hellhound stepped down, they're like, "Oh yeah, Nick Threehorn, he's taken over."
So they
And
they had no problem with him. They had no problem with him at jump,
oh yeah, at
right?
the
It
jump,
seemed
they were
like
like,
he was
"Oh
okay.
yeah, he's so knowledgeable. He's been working under Hellhound. Like this guy is gonna do great. Of course, he is the natural successor."
See,
And at the time, the NAF it's in a golden financial age. And essentially, all Threehorn needed to do was just keep doing what Hellhound had done. Just stay the course, and everything is going to be fine. However, the biggest difference between them had to do with their financial prowess. While Hellhound he was a greedy and money-hungry dude, but he was dedicated to the game, and he was dedicated to the continued growth of the NAF, because the bigger the sports get, the bigger the payday, the more money you get. Hooray, my greed is acceptable.
Mhm.
Threehorn, however, was selfish and he wanted that quick payday. Where Hellhound would be willing to sort of play the long game for his payout, Threehorn, I need that money now. So, Threehorn began doubling the cost of the broadcasting of the game.
No.
Yeah. And because the broadcasting of the game increased, the tickets for the stadium games had to inflate too. Cost of merch rose, the snacks in the stadium cost rose, and he would demand much more money from the sponsors too. And that means if the sponsors want more money, it costs more to broadcast the game, it costs more to go to the game. Well, damn it, of course the players want more money too.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's funny that, like, my reaction to everything you've said so far has been largely in support, and it took a guy raising the prices for
All
me
it
to really
took was
take umbrage with
capitalism.
It really
And
is just ridiculous.
within just 4 seasons, the cost to attend a game rose from an average of 5 pfennigs, which at the time, pretty big amount, and it went from 5 pfennigs to 75
Yo!
pfennigs.
That's a lot of
Yikes.
pennies.
Yeah. But despite all this, money just kept flowing in because, wow, this game is so popular. I love my team. Oh, this is my game. We all love it. It literally is the game that stopped war. Capitalism. It is what it is, and people still paid
Yeah.
it. And eventually, the writing was on the wall. This is obviously unsustainable. The prices began to impact the general market. There was a dramatic capitalist focus that was impacting the branding on goods and services. The Cabal Vision mages were also just like, man, this is so expensive. We need alternatives. Broadcasting wise, we got to figure out some other stuff to broadcast. So they started doing talk shows and
Oh,
theatrical
wow.
dramas, and they were just like, we can't just do Blood Bowl. It's just too expensive. So Blood Bowl began to also change to re-entice viewers because now there were other options. They could watch talk shows, they could watch dramas. They didn't have to watch Blood Bowl. So Blood Bowl was like, you know what? What's the thing with Blood Bowl that people just love? They love the violence, obviously.
Mhm.
So the violence on the field began to increase. And this resulted in the invention of just various new tools to use on the field, including a dangerous new device to the world of Blood Bowl, simply known as the chainsaw, which
Okay.
it is literally just a chainsaw. In a very famous period of time, every single game in a month had a 0-0 score to it because all the teams playing were made up of what was described as chainsaw wielding loonies who just essentially, it was a chainsaw massacre because they would all just kind of forget the rules of the game. They'd forget that they were actually playing Blood Bowl. They would forget that, hey, we're playing football, and would just tear each other apart.
I mean, if you put a chainsaw in my hand and other people have a chainsaw in my hand, I think I might forget to play the sport as well. I think I might be preoccupied with the chainsaw of it all.
Yeah, especially when the other team's got chainsaws too, and they're coming at you just trying to rip you apart. It's like, yeah, screw trying to throw a perfect spiral. Like I'm out here for survival, bro.
Scoring is the last thing, literally the last thing on
my mind. Yeah, I'm out here for survival. And this resulted in a little success because, like, oh my God, they're just killing each other with chainsaws out there. Wow, this is great.
You're gonna tune in. We're gonna watch.
Sure. But many people, as you can imagine, started to take a little bit of issue with it. Crowds began to shrink, and former players became quite outspoken about it. A notably outspoken former player named Jeremiah Cool, who was the captain of the championship-winning Dark Side Cowboys, he was outspoken about it, didn't like it, and he was able to be outspoken about it because he had the backing of the Witch King of Nagaroth, which is just like this just really powerful sort of elven creature. And they used the immense power of their guard to sort of protect Jeremiah Cool. So he could say whatever he wanted. It didn't matter if he was, bashing them or praising them. He wouldn't be affected by like, oh no, I can't say this, otherwise they're gonna come get me. So he could say whatever we wanted. And he was trying to call it like he saw it. He said that the new NAF was just so corrupt, and obviously to him, they didn't actually worship Nuffle like they were supposed to. All they worshipped, all they cared about was money.
Yeah, forgotten where you came from.
Mm-hmm. And because all they worshipped was money and they didn't actually worship Nuffle, he actually specifically said, like, hey, this new version of Blood Bowl, it's heretical. It's heretical towards Nuffle. It's heretical towards what Blood Bowl is supposed to be. And so that statement kind of starts getting people like, oh, you know what? He's kind of right. He's kind of right. The sport does need a change. This is a little heretical.
This MF spittin', so to speak.
Yes, this MFer, he do be spitting bars, for sure. For sure. And unfortunately, the chainsaw era saw, unfortunately, quite a literal thinning out of the sport itself, as it tends to happen when most people are worried with surviving the chainsaw battle than the actual sport. Almost every rookie had been literally cut in half at this point, and all that remained were the old guard, who were more or less retired at the time. And these old players began to make their way back in the form of competing against the NAF to form like their own leagues outside of the NAF. So old retired players would be like, man, this chainsaw shit is whack. Like we have to make this game what it once was. So they'd come out of retirement and they would make these new leagues that newbies could actually play. They would actually play Blood Bowl, and they would actually have a chance at survival. So the once globally recognized NAF was now it was relegated to page 3 of the papers because all of these retired players were making these new leagues like the World's Edge Super League, which is like sort of this famous mountainous region in fantasy. They were making these new leagues, and people cared more about those because it was like, oh, this is Blood Bowl. This isn't just a chainsaw massacre. This is the sport we fell in love with.
Yeah. This happened, right, in the NFL or with the NFL. If I'm someone out there is screaming. But I'm pretty sure that there was the AFL and the NFL existed in competition for a bit, and then
I think you're right. Yeah, and then actually, I think the AFL actually made a comeback because that's like one of those sort of pseudo leagues that's now competing. Actually, I think the XFL and AFL just recently combined.
Oh wow!
And now that's just like one big I forget what they call it. There's some name for it, and that's sort of the summer league when the NFL's out of season now.
Oh, we a while, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do think that there was some sort of merger at some point, but that makes a lot of sense. Just another,
Real world
just yeah,
comparison. Yeah.
yeah.
Sure. I mean, we have the god of NFL, right? We have Nuffle, so sure. But the falling attendance and the terrible ratings caused obviously a downward spiral in the NAF. And this came to a head in the 24-88 championship game. The game was actually packed to capacity, and it was the home team of the Reichland Reavers against the famous Dark Side Cowboys. The game was tied going into the halftime show, and something just didn't feel right about this game. Because during the halftime show, the cheerleading squads would come out. The Reichland Reavers cheerleading squad, the Reaverettes, came out, but the Shadows, the Dark Side Cowboys cheerleading squad, the Shadows kind of no-showed it. The Reaverettes did a great routine, smashing, absolutely great, but the Shadows never arrived. And when the officials went backstage to be like, where are these cheerleaders? What happened? They discovered there were two things missing. The luxury coach of Nick Threehorn and literally all of the money in the vaults of the NAF
Whoa.
were gone.
Oh, man.
And the officials kept it hush-hush because, oh my God, we still have a championship game going on. What the hell do we do? Which the championship game was a dramatic 3-2 victory by the Cowboys. But when the game was over and it was time to give out the prize money, give out the trophies, post-game conference came about, Nick Threehorn, the Shadows cheerleading squad, and all the money in the NAF were still gone. Nick Threehorn had made off with all the money, the Shadows, and just left them high and dry.
We hate Nick Threehorn.
We sure do. We hate that MFer. Ooh boy, he's a.
I don't like him based on the little I know.
Yeah, he's kind of ruined the sport. And now, with the lack of money and the oversight of not being able to deal with Nick Threehorn, obviously this results in sort of a crisis of faith in the NAF. The Association of Broadcasting Conjurers, also known as, you guessed it, the ABC Network.
Okay. I don't know why that keeps getting me, but how continually it is just one-to-one. I'm just kind of one, and I don't know. I don't think the rest of Warhammer is like this, but I can just see somebody being like, "All right, I'm on the Wikipedia. I got the thing. Here we go. Okay, there's that. I'm gonna change the name to this. It's working. I'm invested. I'll say that."
So I feel like Blood Bowl is definitely way more on the nose, but a lot of Warhammer does tend to sort of not so subtly sort of take from popular culture, and there are some very clear references. Like in 40K, there's a character called Sly Marble, I think, who's very obviously he's sort of like Sylvester Stallone and Chuck Norris jumbled into one.
Yeah.
He even has all the sort of Chuck Norris memes attached to him, like, Chuck Norris doesn't cry, the tears cry Chuck Norris or something. So,
and how does the Warhammer community respond to that? Is it normally like, yeah, we don't care, it's fun stuff, or are there people that are like, this is ruining it?
So I don't think anybody thinks it ruins it. I think for the most part, people are just like, oh yeah, that's just kind of what GW does. It's nothing too egregious, and we recognize it, but it's like, so it's all in good fun, I think.
I think you're allowed to have a little fun as a treat, for sure.
Yeah, just a little treat, But so ABC, the Association of Broadcasting Conjurers, withholds payment to the NAF because no more money. And this causes just a horrible domino effect with the sponsors. And it resulted in the unthinkable of the NAF simply has to shut down at the end of 24-88 without any notice to the teams or the associations. When seeking comment for this, One of the Nuffle priests simply said, "It is not the job of the Church of Nuffle to run the sport for you, and we can't imagine why anyone would think otherwise."
Yo.
And without any fanfare at all, the sport had been cut from its governing body, and it was up to everybody else to figure out what they wanted to do with themselves, how they wanted to continue. And what followed was just complete just chaos. There are players without livelihoods. Season ticket holders are just like, this is so screwed up. I have season tickets. What am I supposed to do with these? And the economy of the old world is just crumbling. There was looting, there was rioting. People are no longer watching the shows on the Necromancer's Broadcasting Circle, the NBC. And worst of all, there is now no longer an excuse not to bring back war.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
I paid enough attention to know.
But thankfully, this little sort of like moment of chaos, confusion, and just economic collapse is very short-lived.
Oh, good.
Because in a few years' time, the words of the priest began to make themselves clear. The NAF didn't own Blood Bowl. It was owned by the people. The church literally said, "We don't run the sport for you. Why would you think that we did? It's not ours. It's not owned by the people." So teams that were once casualties of the collapse began to sort of travel around and play sort of pickup games like roving bands of mercenaries. Independent leagues began to take hold, and over time, more and more teams began to sprout up everywhere. And these teams would use the old rules. They would bring back sort of classic Blood Bowl, the good sportsmanship of violent Blood Bowl. And the populace was like, "Oh yeah, this is Blood Bowl. It's not about chainsaws. It's not about gratuitous amounts of money. This is the sport that we love. This is why we love Blood Bowl." And the once abandoned stadiums became home to independent games and brief tournaments to benefit the players and the audience. And the Cabal Vision networks and sponsors began to formulate like this new idea. They would do independent cups. They would do tournaments to make money independently of a major league. And this resulted in the formation of 4 major championship tournaments. We have the All Corners Chaos Cup in the springtime, the Spike Magazine Trophy Open in autumn, the Dungeon Bowl Invitational in winter, and the Blood Bowl Classic.
I love this. I'm so happy for them, and I hope it ends well.
Yes. Yeah, and it doesn't end in all-out war. They've got their game back. It is a game of the people.
I'm mostly happy for the people and the players, but the people mostly.
And also, screw Nick Threehorn. Like, wherever he is with all that money and all those cheerleaders, man.
I've got rocks in your shoe, Nick Threehorn.
Yeah, a never-ending trail of Legos for him to step on.
Yeah. Bad hair days forever.
Hell yeah, every day. The first Blood Bowl Classic, sponsored by Bloodweiser and broadcast exclusively on ABC, was under the direct control of the Imperial Throne heir Karl Franz, who was a huge fan of the sport. The format was a huge success, and the competition was viewed as a glorious summer of excess in the heart of the old world. With the calendar chock full of leagues and tournaments, punctuated by the majors, with the RARG taking control of the rules and regulations, and with the Cabal Vision networks and sponsors in charge of the promotion, the open era had well and truly begun. Blood Bowl was back with a vengeance, because in truth, it had never really gone away.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah, it was a nice little quote, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, now that we have sort of our history of the game, it's time to learn how to play the game itself and what's involved in the game. And as everyone may have guessed up until this point, it's pretty much just American football with some, Warhammer specific sprinkled in.
You're blowing one person's mind right now. Maybe one or two people who aren't fully paying attention.
There's one person that's like, football?
Wait, what?
Football? Nuffle? NFL? What? No way! If you're that one person, please comment. Please leave a comment and be like, football! Mm-hmm. As mentioned before, the ball used in Blood Bowl was originally intended to be that of an inflated pig bladder. But there's some flexibility in what people use as a ball, because the ball can be made from the finest pigskin. In other, probably orc regions, it could be a squig that is bred into being the perfect ball shape. Squigs are like these little ugly creatures that the orcs breed. Essentially, they use them for like everything. You can eat them, you can kick them, you can breed them to be bombs, but they're just like these little red fat blob looking things that the orcs just breed for everything. And it is very it is very on brand that the orcs would be like, yeah, we bred this squig to be a football.
Yeah. Oh.
So
I'm looking at one right now, and I don't think I like it.
No, it's not always great to be a squig. And in some arenas, carved warpstone balls are common too. Warpstone is sort of this mystical green substance in Warhammer Fantasy that is charged with like crazy sort of chaotic energy to it. So I'm assuming if you have a warpstone ball, that thing is going to be bouncing and doing some really wacky, weird warping between reality shenanigans.
Yeah, that's fun, like a little Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Big Super Bowl.
Another major factor about the game is sort of the field, the pitch. In the great words of Nuffle, the pitch needs to be 100 paces long and 60 paces wide. The end zone needs to be a further 5 paces back. The problem with this specific wording is that paces isn't really a specific measurement, because the problem is you have humans, you have tiny goblins, you have orcs that are pretty big, and you have massive hulking towering ogres that are 10 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
So 60 paces to an ogre, little different than 60 paces to a tiny little goblin or a tiny little human. So because of that, every field can look just vastly different. And I have to imagine if you are a human playing in ogre home field, boy, it really sucks trying to go 100 ogre paces to the end zone.
That's like playing in Denver.
Oh,
because
true, because
air
the
is so much
elevation,
thinner.
right. Or it just winter climate. Like if you're the Los Angeles Rams playing the Green Bay Packers in winter, it's like, oh, well, that's not fair, right?
You're literally out of your element.
Nice. Nice. An additional rule about the pitches is that under no circumstances can a pitch be built over an old graveyard, because there was an incident where thousands of undead fans arose from their grave in the middle of the game and just tore the field clear apart.
Yeah, I can imagine that would not be super great.
Yeah, no burial ground pitches. One other major factor that has to do with the pitch itself is that in Nuffle's sacred text, it is clearly stated that grass is the sacred material used for the field. However, due to just different climates, grass isn't always possible. Like if you're in a snowscape, kind of hard to grow grass there. That's where astrogranite comes in.
Nice.
Yeah. Astrogranite was a revolutionary synthetic material that requires no sunlight and virtually no upkeep, except for your usual maintenance of cleaning up blood and gore from the match. However, due to its surface being different than grass and being highly resilient, it has a massive impact on the game. Because of the astrogranite, it can cause the balls to like just really bounce weirdly, because it's not grass, it's like this it's obviously astroturf. So the balls are bouncing real weird. It's not like grass, and apparently it is astrogranite very hard, and it can shatter your armor if you fall on it.
Oh. Well, that's very different than granite.
Yeah, very different. Although I think pro players also complain about AstroTurf because it's really weird to run on. It interacts
Yes.
with cleats weird, and a lot of people have like injured their ankles, like slipping and like rolling an ankle on AstroTurf. I think.
Yes. Yeah, there's something I know, again, talking a little bit out of my ass, but I know there is a phrase called turf toe, which I think has to do with
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
how
yeah.
how it doesn't give or something, and it can
Mm-hmm.
add some pressure back on the,
Definitely. Nothing that'll shatter armor, but like it still sucks.
yeah. We're all aligned that we know that it's a problem, we don't know what the specific
Yeah,
problem is.
exactly. There is a problem with AstroTurf, just we're not sure about the specifics, sure. But Astro Granite was first used in 2485, and teams universally hated it. However, it was a problem at the time, so like you had to do something about it, and you probably will not be shocked to hear that the owner of the company that created Astro Granite was none other than Nick Threehorn.
No, he's back.
He's back again, so it became the norm. Also, it needs to be noted that apparently Astro Granite is listed as coming in over 256 colors and 31 distinct flavors.
Oh. Well, that's
That's
an interesting note.
yeah, that's yeah, the script literally says it needs to be noted Astro Granite comes in 256 colors and 31 distinct flavors, whatever the fuck that means. So, I mean, but, like, if you get tackled and you're like, "Oh, no, I just got a mouthful of Astro Granite." Oh, hey,
Yeah.
tastes like beef jerky, right?
Yeah, I guess that would be nice, and as you travel around, you'd probably wanna get a little nibble.
Yeah,
Just
get a little yeah, the
you
snozberries taste like snozberries.
yeah. You'd wanna be adding to your repertoire, what you know about the flavors in this place. Maybe you go down a
Yeah.
little bit more often if it tastes better.
Mhm.
I don't
The
like that clip.
teams
I don't like
I
what I
don't like
just
that clip.
said.
So the teams on each side, like we said, cap out at 11 people on the field at any given time, with others in reserve. And the goal, like in football, is to get the ball from one side to the other, scoring a touchdown. And whoever has the most points at the end wins. And so, congratulations, American football. It's Blood Bowl. And I think now it's time, now that we have a basic understanding of, Blood Bowl and how to play it and all that, I think we need to go over some of the teams in the
I ca this
world
is what I've been waiting for.
of
I
Blood
can't wait for
Bowl.
this.
Since the game is a global phenomenon, each race in the old world has a notable presence in the sacred game. And so we are about to be bombarded with sort of quick one-line summary of the traits of each species and what they bring to the sport. And for fun, there will be notable in-universe team names per race. So, we'll start off with the Elven Kingdoms. You have the High Elves. They are regal, they have ornate gear, and they are graceful and pretentious. So pretentious, they have refused games because they think their competitors are just too ugly.
Oh.
Typical High Elf.
Yeah.
One of their team names is the Galadriel Gladiators.
Okay.
Next, we have the Wood Elves, who are light in armor for a natural feel, but they hit hard and swift like a breeze. Their team name is the Aethelorn Avengers. And again, these are just random teams, just to give a
Mm.
little flavor, a little flavor. These aren't all the teams they have. Dark Elves are similar in style to the High Elves, but they are just much more spiteful. They're like if the High Elves were going through their emo phase a little bit.
Right.
Team name for them, besides the Dark Side Cowboys that we've already talked about, is the Nagaroth Nightwings.
Ooh, that's
Uh,
good. I'd be nervous about going up against
right?
them just by the name alone.
I want to be on the Nightwings. That's a cool. I
Yeah.
bet they have a dope logo too.
Oh, I'm sure.
And the Badlands are where we have sort of our greenskin tribes. You have the orcs, the OGs of the game. They hit hard, but sometimes, as orcs tend to do, they hit really hard and they just keep hitting and they just keep fighting. And what? We're playing a game? Damn, I forgot because I was too busy ripping your arms out of their socket.
Uh-huh. That
Team
happens in football too, in American
Yeah,
football.
it definitely does.
It
Happens
happened a
in
bit to me
football,
when I
happens
was
in hockey,
playing.
yep, yep.
Yeah,
Team name for the orcs is the Thunder Valley Greenskins.
I like that.
The black orcs are stronger and more intelligent orcs, essentially. That's what a black orc is. They're bigger, stronger, tougher, they're smarter, they speak in complete sentences, they hit hard, and they actually use tactics. They're not just gonna try and beat you up, they're actually gonna outsmart you too. Team name for them is just the Orkland Raiders. Pretty normal.
That's good.
The ogres are defined as almost perfect Blood Bowl players because you tell them what to do and they just go do it. They do it and they do it better than the rest. Unfortunately, ogres aren't necessarily the smartest people in the whole wide world. So when you get a whole team of them, a lot of times they'll do what the coach tells them, and sometimes they'll just kind of forget what you told them and then just go and start drinking and eating instead of playing the game.
I've worked with some people like that.
I was about to say, sometimes I am like that. That's just me sometimes. Team name for them is the Fire Mountain Gut Busters.
Oh, I like the gut busters.
Yeah, the Gut Busters. Well, I guess that's fair because the ogres are all about their big gut. That's how you tell when an ogre's really strong, is they got this big gut that just bulges out. I'm a strong ogre. So actually, that makes sense. The goblins are utterly terrible at the game and only win by pure chance and by hiding. Apparently, they hide weapons all around the pitch. And so they act almost like, if you watch wrestling at all, they act like the bad guy that's like, oh, I found a chair under the ring. I'm going to hit you with it when the ref's not looking. And that's sort of how they win. And apparently, they have enough gold to bribe victories on the up and up.
If I have any affinity for any fantasy anything, I'm a big goblin guy. I love goblins, and I kind of,
Hell yeah.
I'm not the tallest guy. I think I might consider myself one by any means necessary.
Normally, I'm also like, because normal host Bricky is like 6 foot, and I'm like, man, I'm like 5'8" on a good day.
Yeah, we're in the same bed. We'll be on the goblin team.
Let's go. We're the goblins. We're the heel wrestlers. Let's go.
It's Goblin Week.
Hell yeah.
On Adeptus weekend.
Team name for them is the Mangled Meat Bags, formerly known as the Goblin Git Bashers.
I love it.
And the old world classic races. So we got our humans who are quote unquote the best overall players just because they're basic as hell. They're humans. They're self-congratulatory. We all know what a human is. We all are humans. We get it. Their team name is the Cleveland Crescents. Yeah. Next, we have the halflings who naturally leave a lot to be desired due to their size and stature, but they are defensive masterminds and just make the best coaches.
Oh, and a low center of gravity. It'd be a little tough to.
True. Yeah, especially if you're like an ogre. Like, try tackling a halfling. Like, you got to get way down there to,
Just kind of just mashing them into the ground, I guess, which
it's
possible.
Yeah, that's right. I guess you could just step on them. Yeah. Team name for them is the Blue Bay Crammers, but a special shout out to another team that is simply called the Drunken Idiots.
Oh, that's good. That's fun.
The Norse are huge, violent, known to drink in the middle of the game, and they actually are known to show up with literal yetis on the pitch and say, "Stop me, I dare you." Team name for them is the Vinheim Valkyries.
Ooh.
And apparently the Imperial nobility also field a team. They are ornate, beautiful, pretentious, and usually easy targets for the other team because they are just so pretentious. Our script writer has also listed for them epic rap battles in history, Aaron Rodgers versus Hydrogen Bomb.
Oh my God.
So, team name for them is the Bogenhafen Barons. Pretty normal, pretty whatever.
Yeah. In high school we had it was an all Catholic kind of preppy school.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm imagining I know the vibes. And I know the vibes.
Oh, yeah. Imperial nobility would totally be that preppy high school. Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. Yep. Yep. The all boys school.
Mhm.
We then have the dwarves, who are the true OGs of the game, amazing running game, but feel incredible entitlement because Roselle, he was sort of the founder of Blood Bowl. He was an ancient dwarf. And a lot of times, because they feel this way, because Roselle knew all the rules, because the dwarves are like, this is our game, they tend to argue with the refs a lot and are just like, no, of course, you don't know the rules. I'm
Mm,
a dwarf,
mhm.
you dolt. So they're a little pretentious. Their team name
They're
is Oh, go ahead.
you say the team name and then I'll follow up.
Oh, they are the Dwarf Warhammers.
Oh, wow,
Warhammerers.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you know anything about hockey. I know more about hockey. I know a lot more about hockey than I know football.
Oh, I'm a
But,
huge hockey nut. I
so
listen,
this
you
is
wanna
the
talk
original
hockey?
6.
Let's go.
This is the
Yes! That's
original
the
6.
original 6!
Yeah.
Yes!
And you
Yes!
don't feel that way if your team is in the original 6.
Mhm. It's a little different. The fan base for the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, little different than the Montreal Canadiens, right?
Uh-huh. And we're all looking at you all thinking this about you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then the underworld teams, we have the Skaven, who are sort of like these conniving, backstabbing rat people. They view it as a great opportunity to mindlessly kill and maim. They just love the violence on the pitch. Some of the highest player kill counts have been during Skaven matches. We also have little snotlings, which are like little sort of mini demons. They are the worst in Blood Bowl. Imagine driving a truck through a flag football game, and essentially you have what the snotlings are trying to do.
Oh.
Their team name is the Skaven Blight Scramblers.
Ooh, I do like Now, Scramblers is an extremely arena football name.
That is very arena football for sure. Very CFL name, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have the Lustrian Super League, which is sort of like your Amazons. And so we actually do have Amazons, huge athletic ladies of the jungle who beat the hell out of the other teams. Perfect for the game and perfect for a future poster for Adric. Shy. I don't know if Maddie has seen our posters. They're very pinup inspired, you know.
I've seen a few, and yeah, I was waiting for them. I was waiting for the image to come in for the not more
Yeah.
eagerly than any of the other ones. Everyone chill out.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It'd be great for a poster. Blood Bowl poster of the Amazons. Team name for them is the Laxon Kill Jaguars.
Okay, it's giving. And I don't know any more about this than I know about regular football, but there was a lingerie.
There was a
football.
lingerie football league. That's
Yeah.
right. I forgot about that. Oh
Uh-huh.
man,
How
that
could you
oh
forget?
boy.
I wanna say that was a bit of a dark time in our
Yeah, that
society.
that was definitely sort of here's a low-hanging fruit that surely won't backfire ever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, then we have the lizard men, incredible at teamwork due to various lizards that make up the lizard men. And so the lizard men are like one of the first races that were created in Warhammer Fantasy. So they've been playing since literally the dawn of time. So they just have the best teamwork. They always work together. They know the game. Toss them the ball. They always score. You know, team name for them is the I guess I hadn't seen this name before. It is the Guacamole Crater Gators,
That's pretty good.
but guacamole is spelled Gwakamoli. The
I love that.
Guacamole Crater Gator. Yeah, yeah.
That's I don't know, is that a reference to something in the
Um,
world, the guacamole?
I mean, it just sounds like, guacamole, avocado,
Uh-huh.
guacamole.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And I mean, the lizardmen kind of look a little on the avian side, so guac, 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 guac.
Oh,
Maybe.
okay.
Maybe.
They're not green, I'm assuming, or are they green?
I mean, they are lizards, so they are green.
Okay,
Green like guacamole? Sure.
maybe. Who knows? It's hard to get in the minds.
So next up, we have the Sylvian Spotlight. We have the Khemri Tomb Kings that were literally buried dreaming to play once more. They have very light body mass, due to literally being mummies.
Oh,
But
okay.
they make up for it in armor because they have just the best armor, but they need a strong lich to literally keep them together. They need like this overseeing mage that'll actually like revive them, make sure they stay undead, make sure they stay together. Because if you kill the lich, everybody just kind of the
Right.
spell is broken. Team name for them is the Netterkertet. Sure. Next up, you have the Necromantic Horrors, which is imagine a coach trying to put together the monster mash of a team with werewolves, zombies, and whatever other dead thing they can find.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah,
Now
a team
that's
of zombie werewolves and stuff. Yeah. That'd be horrible to fight, though. Like, I would not want to go up against the undead zombies, werewolves, and
No, no, you're right.
Yep. Team name for them is the Wolfenburg Crypt Stealers. That's kinda
Oh.
cool. I like
Yeah, that
that.
is
That's
very
not
good.
bad. The Shambling Undead, they're loved because it's an opportunity for fans to watch their old dead favorite players back in action. So this is
Oh,
because this
okay.
is just like, oh, my favorite player from back when the game first started has been revived as a zombie corpse. Hell yeah, brother, let's go.
The Washington was it the not the Generals? What's the Washington basketball league or basketball team? Is it the Generals? No,
Oh,
the
the
Generals are the
what?
ones that play the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I
What am
think
I
it's
thinking of?
the shoot, who is the
I was
Wizards, right?
trying the Wizards. I was trying to make a one-to-one when because Michael. I'm so out of my element here. Michael Jordan. But I
He was on the Wizards for the end of his
came back and
career.
they created that team, so kind of the same thing.
Yes. Yeah,
Not
it
I
is.
didn't wanna don't please I lived in Chicago, I know how they feel about Michael Jordan. I did not say that he was a reanimated corpse. I
When he
when he
played
was
for the
playing on the
Wizards,
Wizards.
well,
I didn't say that. Drawing parallels.
Shy says it's like watching Tom Brady play, basically,
I see.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. However, only problem with the Shambling Undead is it takes so long to get these old players revived for a game. They got to get to the stadium like 4 days in advance.
Uh,
Their team name is the Tombstone Terrors.
and that's good.
Yeah.
It's a good name.
We have vampires who they play and they're pretty good, but as is the case with most vampires, they sort of have a flair for the dramatics. They want to be sort of the center of attention. So vampires, while they do play, they prefer being either a referee or a commentator. And the most famous commentator in all of Blood Bowl is a vampire by the name of Jim Johnson. And his co-host is Bob Bifford the Ogre, which I believe if you play the video game, you hear those two a lot.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and the team name is the Black Sabbaths. And Shai has posted a picture of those two from the video game in the chat.
That this is quite often what you'll see on like a normal commentary. You have like a player who is probably like, a lineman or something opposite maybe a QB or something like that. They provide all angles of the game. I like that.
Yeah, apparently they're both ex-players. So, hell yeah. But yeah, it's a very, very fitting commentary team of like your bruiser former player giving you like player feedback and then sort of the color commentator who's adding a little spice. Yeah. Next up, we have the Chaos Chosen, who are beastmen, minotaurs, superhumans. Not very subtle. They hit like a truck, and, that's what they do. Their team name is the Doom Lords.
Oh, I thought the Chaos Chosen was the name.
Oh, they are just like they're favored by Chaos.
I see. Yeah, they should have gone. Chaos Chosen is good too.
I was gonna say, yeah, Chaos Chosen is a much better name than the Doom Lords. Like Doom Lords, just anyway,
a little on the nose.
Yeah. Next, we have the race of the Chaos Dwarves, who have been banned from the NAF, or they were banned from the NAF, but now they're able to play again. Most of the time, they're coaches, and Chaos Dwarf teams are just hobgoblin slaves, which is unfortunately very canon to Chaos Dwarfs in fantasy. They have a lot of hobgoblin slaves, a lot of just slaves in general. Can't imagine why they were banned. Their team name is the Tsar Nagrin Ziggurats. Next up, we have the Chaos Renegades. These are players that have disgraced the word of Nuffle so bad that they've been formed into an all-star team. But it's a team of the worst creatures in the world trying to prove they're the worst, so they are just woefully not very cohesive.
Okay, your misfit team.
Yeah, definite misfits. Their team name is the Mongrel Horde.
I was waiting for a singular name. I like when teams do singular names.
Okay.
Like your Crimson
This is a good
Tide or
one.
something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Roll Tide. Roll Tide. Yep. Roll Tide.
of course, Roll Tide.
Corn also, like we said, Corn followers have their own team. Their followers, the god of war himself. They're the most violent players on the pitch, but they're also salty that nobody wants to go to war anymore because, like, the game is so well received and everybody loves the game so much. Nobody goes to war anymore. So they're like, damn it, we need something to do. Nobody's warring anymore. We love combat. Corn loves combat. This is a violent game. So if Corn loves it, I guess so do we. And we love violence. So, sure, whatever. And their team name is the Blood-Soaked Bruisers.
Now that's good. I'm looking at and can I reference this image here? This is an incredible image.
Absolutely.
Of the blood-soaked bruisers, this Corn team.
Oh yeah.
It's if you can imagine, if you have no idea what these look like, I'm gonna put a comp out there. It's Goldar from Power Rangers.
Oh, nice. Yes. That's
and
fair.
horns.
That is absolutely. It definitely. This picture feels very Goldar.
Which I think is one of the best designs of anything. They nailed it out the gate with Goldar and with these guys as well.
Yeah, it's Goldar with a little more red trim, right?
Yeah. It was a plus up. I think it's a plus up. A good accent.
Definitely. And then Nurgle also fields a team, which is the god of decay, sickness, rot, death, acceptance of death. So these guys are quite literally sick. But their biggest attribute is when you worship Nurgle and when you accept the inevitability of death, he makes it so you don't feel pain anymore. So it's really hard to really mess with like a Nurgle team because they don't feel pain, they don't ache, they can just keep going and going. And also because they're with Nurgle, they can literally make you sick, violently sick, horribly sick. So they're a pretty good team. Pretty good team to be on. And their team name is the Bile City Blight Kings.
That's good too.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah, that's really good.
Next up, we have sort of the misfits that didn't really fit in any other category. So we have gnomes, who are similar to halflings in that they're not the best at Blood Bowl. They tend to be a lot more aggressive on the field because they're kind of smaller, so they try and make up for it with just relentless aggression. They also ride in on animals and use them as mounts to improve their game. And their team name is the Glimdwero Groundhogs.
Yeah, that's not really intimidating at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're small, but they're just like aggressive. They're like these aggressive little groundhogs that are just
I
always
suppose,
nipping
but
at
when
your
you have the
ankle.
Blight Kings and the Bruisers.
True. Yeah, it's kind of hard to compete with the Bile City Blight Kings. Yeah. Then we have the Bretonnians, who are more or less just, French Knights of the Round Table. The Bretonnians tend to have one very loud and rich nobleman that arrogantly leads the team, while the rest are forcefully drafted peasants. Which is very Bretonnian, they kind of make the peasants do all the hard work, while their holy knights kind of, just... Apparently they have no team names, or no team names could be found for them.
Well...
Next, we have Kislev, which is sort of this very snowy, Arctic northern place. They play simply to impress their Ice Queen. That's it. That's the only reason they play the game. No other reason. Just
nice.
All praise the Ice Queen, yeah. So next team is the Slann, who are literal... They're basically as close to a god as you can get. They were like one of the first things created by the old ones who literally made this world. Apparently, they don't play very well, though, for being gods. And they only request matches with the best teams, even though they're really bad themselves. Their team name is the Lustria Croakers. And so that's sort of like a basic rundown of the teams, the races, all that sort of stuff. And like we said before, very rarely is one team strictly made up of just one species. It's pretty uncommon for that to happen because again, you really need the versatility to be able to dominate at the game.
Yeah.
And we're also going to talk about a few notable players that have done some interesting things. Like the most famous Skaven player to ever play the sport was someone named Tarsh Surehands. And in typical fantasy fashion, he had 2 heads and 4 arms. Which
that makes it pretty easy.
Yeah, made him, as you can imagine, he was just the best pass receiver the game had ever seen.
Yeah.
Ever. However, during a match against the world-renowned Snake Man team, I'm not even gonna, I'll try to pronounce the name. Apparently they're the Shtvekgith. That's their name. I guess that's snake for something, but whatever. In this game against the Snake Man team, Surehands missed a pass, dropped it, and his 2 heads they couldn't stop arguing. Like, it's your fault.
Oh.
How dare you drop it? We have 4 arms. How did you this up? And the 2 heads got so mad at each other that he actually strangled himself to death.
Okay, I was gasping preemptively, but I was correct in my gasp.
You were strangled himself to death. Just 2 arms for each throat and just croak. And one of the tallest players in the history of the sport was Gurk Cloudscraper. He was a storm giant halfback for the Asgard Ravens. He was as tall as 9 men and only played 1 match due to being banned for excessive violence. The shortest player is sort of related. Shortest player was the captain of the halfling squad, the Greenfield Grasshuggers, named Big Jobo Hairyfeet. And he was the shortest player in history because he was actually stepped on very hard by Gurk Cloudscraper. So he was really compact.
That's what we were saying we would be worried about.
Yep,
Low center of gravity, sure. I like the name Grasshuggers, though. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, that's pretty nice, especially for a football team.
Yeah.
And no episode about notable players would be complete without mention of Griff, the godlike Oberwald, the star human player of the Reichland Reavers. He helped bring home 3 Blood Bowl championships with the Reavers and is one of the most sponsored players in the history of the sport. However, in more recent memory, Griff opted to not retire his number with the Reavers and instead signed with the Bogenhafen Barons, which is very similar to something that maybe Tom Brady just recently did in his playing career with the Patriots and the Buccaneers. But I'm sure that's, again, just wild coincidence.
Yeah. Wow.
However, the player widely considered to be the greatest player in the history of the sport is someone named Morgenthorg. Morgenthorg.
Where does the first name end and the last name begin?
Morg and Thorg. It's like Morg and Thorg, sort of.
Okay.
Yeah. In his own words, I'm good because I've played for every team in the league. Except for the ones I haven't.
I like that.
Morgenthorg is an ogre that has not only scored 102 touchdowns, but is responsible for a killing, maiming count of over 570.
Dang.
He's also
handsome fella.
Oh, yeah, nice mohawk. He's also taken home the Anti-Violence Watchdog Committee's Worst Tackle of the Year award 5 separate times. And his presence in road safety advertisements has cut roadside accidents down by over 25%.
That's good stuff.
Oh, yeah, he's doing God's work. However, his most prestigious accomplishment is also one of the most controversial. He is the only active player in the Blood Bowl Hall of Fame. One one of the prerequisites to be in the Hall of Fame is you have to be retired. But he was able to get in thanks to, a certain bribable commissioner being in power at the time. Which means, of course, he bribed Nick Threehorn so that he could be elected into the Hall of Fame whilst still being an active player.
Uh, you
Yeah.
don't like
a-
that.
And apparently, he managed to persuade Nick Threehorn with only a pencil sharpener, 3 carrots, and a small desk lamp.
Pencil sharpener, 3 carrots, and a small desk lamp.
So I guess it
Alright.
was less he paid him and more he threatened him mightily with a pencil sharpener, 3 carrots, and a small desk lamp.
Okay, the 3 carrots,
Interesting.
I was wondering how that would work, but I guess if you
Yeah.
could sharpen the carrots, those would be sharp, and then you can do whatever
Who
you want.
knows? And also, he's just a giant ogre.
Yeah,
So
he
you
probably
don't
didn't
need
even need
much.
it.
Yeah, probably didn't even need it. And one of the most violent and versatile players in the history of the game is the terrifying and fearsome. Oh god, his name is Acorn the Squirrel.
Alright.
Akhorne, Acorn the Squirrel. It's not just what they eat, it's also his name. And apparently he is able to go into an utter blind rage on the pitch, but most scary of all is that he has the rare ability to play for any team he chooses. Apparently in the
Huh.
tabletop, his literal card stat says he plays for any team. There you go.
Interesting.
The
Okay.
squirrel can play for any team. And just to close this out, we have a few notable incidents that, we're going to talk about. And one of the longest scoring attempts in the game was made by the dwarf Warhammerers against the orcish gouged eyes. Grom Red Axe was literally loaded into a very illegal cannon in the dwarf end zone. And in this cannon, he's got the ball and they fire him off and they're like, okay, this is going to be the easiest touchdown ever. Literally, they're not going to be able to touch him. We're shooting him out of a cannon. However, the team used way too much gunpowder, and this poor guy, Grom Red Axe, was shot over 40 leagues and 70 yards above the stadium. And while
Oh.
he did, he managed to cross the touchdown line, and they counted it as a touchdown. The only problem is Grom Red Axe was carrying the only ball that they had at the time.
Mm.
And so the game lasted for 4 days because they had to find Grom Red Axe and get the ball back.
I like that the game continues, and they don't just go, "Well, we don't have
Yeah,
the
well,
ball."
game over, I guess. We gotta postpone it. No. The game goes on.
That's serious, gamesmanship.
Yep. Another notable moment involves the dwarves and, believe it or not, a bunch of spiders. The largest team in Blood Bowl history were the Dark Mountain Spiders, which were formed by the Spider King Klaka Taulak. He registered over 900 spiders for his team. And despite having 8 limbs, apparently spiders really suck at Blood Bowl, and apparently their moves are ridiculously predictable. And because they're just like bugs, they're really fragile. Really fragile.
I
And
see.
so when they fought against the dwarfs, oh boy, they lost a lot of their team members.
Huh.
And after 4 years in the game, the spider team was abandoned because starting with 900 spiders for the team, they had to retire because they only had 8 members left.
Oh my gosh, now that makes me very sad as well. I like
Yeah,
spiders.
a lot of squish, but oh, you like spiders, huh?
I like spiders. I used to
Okay.
hate them. I'm kind of like Batman in that way.
Oh, it's
They
a
were
symbol.
they were very scary to me, and, now I have a deep respect for them.
If I see a spider and it's not bothering me, I will leave it alone. However, if
Yeah,
it's
that's
in
nice.
my face,
I
all bets
understand.
are off. Yeah.
I understand.
And the Skaven Scramblers specifically are the only team to have won the Blood Bowl trophy back-to-back after a full year, but their attention of the trophy is a little questionable. After winning the trophy for the first time, the subsequent Blood Bowl championship was held in their stadium. There was controversy that season because many fans believed that the Scramblers that were on the field for the whole year were actually decoys, and that the real Scramblers were doing something to their arena, giving themselves an unfair advantage. They were maybe they were setting booby traps or anything. But the NFA ruled that this was impossible, despite the fact the stadium showed a noticeable and very distinct major slope towards the opposing end zone and an quote an abnormal number of bottomless shafts on the field.
Wow. These are the rat. This is the rat team.
Yep, these are the conniving, backstabbing, anything, win at all cost rats.
Well, and they did it.
And they did it. Back-to-back champs. That's how you do it. And that is our I shan't call it a brief introduction to Blood Bowl, but that is our introductory episode to Blood Bowl. Maddie, how did you enjoy it?
I loved every bit of this. This was so much fun. Thank you so much. I found this. I do think that it's nice to know because, like you said, the Warhammer is such a really dark property. It's a lot of bloodshed. Yeah. It's a lot of violence, torment, and I think torture. Yeah, and I know that much to be true. But it's nice to know that you can have fun every once in a while.
Yeah, especially, I feel like in fantasy especially, they are more than willing to just kind of let loose, have a little quirky fun, and they do sometimes in sci-fi, but it feels like fantasy is much more willing to sort of let its hair down every now and then and just have like these goofy moments. So yeah, it's a nice little diversion.
Yeah. Well, I had such a good time.
Well, we appreciate having you. Thank you for stopping by. It was great having you. I hope, like you said, you enjoyed it. And honestly, anytime you want to come back, let Shy know. Feel free. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day. And do you have anything you want to shout out?
Well, I'll say absolutely. I would love to. If you have to instill sci-fi knowledge on someone, I would love to hear that. Knowing now with a little bit of a primer about what the silliness is like, I'm ready for the hard stuff. So I would
for the grim dark, huh?
happily come back and be dropped anywhere in the long line of Warhammer lore. But yeah, I'm on Maddie is Talking everywhere. The quickest way to find my stuff is just maddieistalking.com. And you can go. It has all the links to everything. That's my made up link tree. I made it myself.
Well, hey, it fits. You are talking. Maddie is indeed talking.
I certainly was for a little bit of this. I was listening for a lot more of it, but it's never the wrong username. I found out.
Yeah, it's a good username for internet personality doing stuff that involves.
Yeah.
Talking, for sure.
And on my YouTube account, I'm doing essays where I talk about things that I actually do know about. So if you want to hear me
let's go
from any amount of knowledge, then that would be it over there. Maddie's Talking.
Is it anything specific, or is it just sort of pop culture?
Nothing specific
general,
right now. I'm just. Okay. It's kind of whatever. It's a lot of like personal life lessons that feed into something that I'm obsessed with at the moment. So,
hell yeah.
I also co-host and produce a podcast.
Oh, hell yeah.
Called the Get Scared Pod. It's GETSCARED ! That's I would say that's kind of my day job over there on the Watcher Network. Okay. But it's a fun hangout podcast where we talk about spooky, scary things. It's a comedy show. So
oh, hell yeah. Let's go. All right, for real this time. We'll see you next week, everyone.